It is our fourth episode here, and super excited to have you all join us. I am, of course, refreshing the page here. All right.
We did it.
We did it. So, Becca, how you doing? How's your week been?
My week has been crazy. In the last 4 minutes, my headphones decided to give me the low battery, please charge warning, and I don't know where other headphones are. So that's a pretty good summary of how my week is going.
Yeah, I feel like that feels like a meme. Like, I don't know. I've explained to someone this week that my week felt like, you know how you need to print something out of the printer and you've like put off a really long time printing it, and then you go there and it's like you got to get out the door, but then there's no ink in the printer, and then you have to get the paper. It's just been a lot of craziness, you know, but hang it in there.
Hang in there. Yeah, and I think like the first couple weeks we had all the adrenaline of this and people were like really together, and then people started to kind of hit their lows, and now it's the like, okay, this can't keep going for another multiple months, can it?
Yeah.
Oh God. And like reality is setting in.
I was very fortunate that I was able to take a day off this Monday, and I took it off with two coworkers, and we all streamed Cats separately from our homes in the Bay Area, and they had never seen it before. I had, of course, seen Cats in theaters before because I am a recovering musical theater actress. It held up in that it did not hold up. It's not a very good film, but it's very fun to watch with people, as I'm sure you know. Becca, you saw Cats in the theaters as well, I'm sure.
I did. Well, I remember I texted you about it because I went with my mom and my sister, and it was like, guys, do you want to watch a terrible movie?
Yes.
My mom was like, why would we go to watch a bad movie? I don't get it. And he was like, no, you're coming. And like right as the opening credits started, the people behind us were like, I'm not ready for this. We were like, this is perfect. It was so bad. It was so
Back
bad.
when we could go see movies in theaters, I ended up seeing it with three friends. It was one of those movie theaters where you buy the tickets ahead of time. We were the only 4 tickets purchased in the theater. So we're like, great, we're going to have it was like a 3 p.m. on Thursday showing. We thought we'd have the whole theater to ourselves, but then we got there and there were like maybe like 3 or 4 older gentlemen there, and we're like, oh no, we're going to be laughing through this whole thing and ruin it for them. Within the first 30 seconds, the other gentleman in the room started laughing. We knew, all right, I think we're in good company here to consume this content. But it was really nice. I hadn't taken a day off during this thing yet, and I don't think I would have thought to have taken a day off, but we were very lucky that we were given a day from our org, and we decided to take it together because we knew we're all workaholics, and if we didn't take it, we wouldn't take it, so we kept each other accountable, and we got to spend our Monday watching Cats together.
Reddit is giving everybody off next Friday for that exact same reason.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, like the email came out, and they were like, yeah, we were debating doing it on 420, but that was too last minute, so we're doing this on
Well, I hope you don't accidentally crash the Animal Crossing server or something with all these Redditors on Animal Crossing.
They'll be fine, I'm sure. But no, I have a colleague actually who's taking off every other Friday. And he's been doing it since the like mandatory shelter-in-place started. And I thought it was such a smart way to just make sure you get breaks and get time to in. Like I might do that. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, before we bring our wonderful guest on today, I'm so excited. Did you bring anything to show and tell, Becca?
I did.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
So I told this story to Chloe already, but here goes. So somebody posted on the Oakland subreddit last week, hey, so I just finished a 1,000-piece puzzle, and I don't really want to do it again, but I want to do another 1,000-piece puzzle. Does anybody have a puzzle swap? And I was like, that's amazing. Obviously, let's do this. So we went and did a puzzle swap, and I now have this like a 1,000-piece puzzle with like spices and things that I'm terrified to start.
That's a very interesting abstract art of the Spice Girls, Becca.
This is abstract art of the Spice Girls, but I mean, I'll tell you what I want. What I really, really want is for the Spice Girls to do this puzzle. Because stop right now. Thank you very much. But
I didn't know what I was up against. Wow.
I don't know. I have a friend who actually fines me $1 every time I insert a song lyric in regular conversation.
I feel like we got to get Corey Quinn on the show, and we'll have a three-way pun off soon. We'll have to pitch that idea to him.
Anyway, so that's my show and tell puzzle. The show and tell puzzle I'm not using is a second puzzle I swapped, where somebody handed me a puzzle and then promptly said it's missing 4 pieces. So, life pro tip: if you do a puzzle exchange with somebody, disclose that your puzzle is missing pieces.
Rude. So rude. Okay, so I have 2.25 things to share for show and tell today. I'll start with the quarter piece. So a project that I bought myself to do is I ordered these hula hoops, which I cannot fit in the whole frame. They also light up, sort of, kind of. And you might be thinking, Chloe, what are you going to do with these hula hoops? Well, it's so funny that you ask, listener or viewer or Becca. I, before shelter in place and all of this fun stuff, would travel a lot on airplanes. And I would get so annoyed waiting in line just how close people would get to me in line. And I, like hitting me with their suitcases or the toes of their shoes, just like my boundaries have always just felt very invaded. So I'm finding that in the very little amount that I'm having to go out and, walk down to the store to get, groceries or essential items, that people aren't really social distancing. So I bought these hula hoops, and I'm going to put suspenders around them, and I'm going to play a little around with some IoT and figure out if I can make a little beep beep sound when people are too close, because ain't anybody got time for people not moving down the street for me. These hula hoops are cute, and what else do I have to do? So that's one thing. So that's my quarter project, because this is not completely done, but stay tuned for that.
Incredible.
And I will, once this is all over, be wearing this to the airport. I hope I can get it through security. The other thing that I will share is I'm getting really excited because the blog post that I talked about last week, or the video I should say, that I'm putting together about power apps, is going to be edited today. I'm doing a little editing from my couch today. So take a look at this link for that. That'll be coming out very soon if you want a sneak peek. But I think this is a great segue, my final show and tell piece. A great segue into this third piece, because today we are talking about finding your magical career, your true calling, what you were born to do for on this planet, or at least for in this year, or whatever you're looking to do. I had the absolute pleasure of reading this fabulous book, Find Your Way Forward by Meg Duffy. Ooh, and the reason I circle that around like that is because Meg Duffy is our guest today, and I could not be more excited. So, without further ado, I'm going to add her to the stream. Welcome, Meg! Ooh.
Thanks, Chloe.
Hi.
Thank you, Becca.
Thanks for coming today. I know it was such a commute to get here, all the traffic to...
Going from my living room to still the living room.
Yes, and you're joining us from New York, right?
Yes, waving from Brooklyn.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about what you do, Meg. What does it mean to be a career coach? Tell us about this fabulous book. Who are you? Introduce yourself to the listeners.
Sure. So my name is Meg Duffy, and I am a career coach who focuses on women in tech. I have worked in tech before in different roles. We'll talk about that later. But my career definitely did not start in tech. I believe when I messaged Chloe, I used the term wiggly noodle to describe my career, which is pretty accurate. I don't think as a kid I had a strong sense of, I need to be an X. I liked writing, I liked the brain, so I think neuroscience was on my list. Not really fully understanding what that job would be like if I was doing it on a day-to-day basis. I studied psychology in college, but ended up taking a lot of journalism internships to pursue that writing. And then I graduated in 2008, and there were no jobs. So I had to figure out a plan B. I was lucky enough to get a job at my old high school, tutoring ESL and special education students, and really got interested in just helping people connect with the information they needed to do what they needed to do. I ended up getting a master's in library science and focusing on archives. And so that led me to my first very weird full-time job, which was the production archivist role at the Metropolitan Opera.
You are such a wiggly noodle.
Oh my God, noodle.
I love this.
What does that mean?
That is a great question, because when you put it on a resume, no one has any idea. So the production department was in charge of putting together all of the performances. So they're coordinating the set building, the costume design, the props. And so my job was to document all those things. So we're talking taking a photo of every person that goes on stage, every animal that goes on stage. So sometimes you're photographing like a donkey in a tiny hat.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Sometimes you're photographing every item in a kitchen. There's one production where there was a whole kitchen and everything behind the doors had different food items that were all props. So
Cool.
Lots of really granular detail.
And you had to like recognize all of those details and write that out in a really thorough way that other people could kind of imagine as if they were there.
Fortunately, I got to take pictures, because if I had to write it out, I think I'd still be doing it.
It's basically documentation for the opera.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
Yep.
the other half of the job was making sure all information was organized
Very
and accessible.
cool. And what's
Ultimately-
done with those archives? Like, what purpose do they serve?
Yeah, so the Met is very unusual in the sense that it runs in rep. So the thing that will be on stage during the day rehearsing is not the thing that goes up at night. So they're doing a different performance every single night. And so it's really important to be able to quickly pull up a photo and say, okay, we did this 4 days ago. How do we need to make it look?
It's almost like continuity in film almost, but see, when I used to do musicals and shows and we'd have to share the theater with another production, we'd be like, they're going to touch our props and our makeup. I feel this role is needed.
Absolutely, yeah. And especially when you haven't done the show in a while and it's coming out of a box and you have to very quickly assemble it and put it together, having a photo makes a lot of difference.
So when you were doing that, like if you could like talk to yourself when you were doing that job and you were to talk to them now and say, yo, I wrote this book about career coaching and stuff, do you think your old self would be like, what are you, excuse me, ma'am? Like, did you ever see yourself going this direction? It's so different.
It's so funny that you say that, because the kernel of my coaching business actually started around that time. So I would volunteer to help with different things. And so every year we would hire an intern. We were hiring for a couple other positions while I was there. And I took on the role of just kind of vetting the resumes at first. And it just struck me the difference in, there was such a range of resume that you received. Some were really well tailored and others could have used a little bit of help. And so I used to joke that I wanted to teach a class to help these folks who had, kind of questionable resumes get those skills up to speed.
Yeah.
Little did I know that a couple years later I would be doing that very thing.
They were like your little workshop almost.
Absolutely.
Workshopping your
I saw a lot
tactics.
of questionable resumes. Yeah.
What makes a resume a questionable resume?
Oh yes, great question.
We would definitely see things between one of the most heartbreaking ones that I saw was the resume just didn't really have a lot of information on it. Like, it was clear that this person was fresh out of school, and like they weren't really conveying a lot of information that would indicate that they were qualified. But the nail in the coffin was when they wrote their cover letter, they kept talking about the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and that was not us. We were the opera. So there was like all of this reference to like different, artistic movements, and it was clear that that person wasn't really sure what kind of a role they were applying to.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, I worked as a recruiter very briefly, and so often as a recruiter, even as a hiring manager, you will get these resumes where, we've all done it before. We've all like sent the wrong, like, dear sir or ma'am, cookie cutter cover letter to the wrong thing. But the frequency in which I would get resumes for the completely opposite kind of job was crazy. And I think that, you can do a lot to stand out in this industry just by dotting your I's and crossing your T's, which I always have to think about when I say out loud, of course. So we all have very wiggly noodle careers here, which I love. How did you end up so you work specifically with people to get into tech with career changes, or how did that kind of that element of it come about?
Yeah, so eventually, I realized that there are only so many donkeys and tiny hats that you can photograph before you reach the peak of what you
Sadly,
can learn.
I wish there was an unlimited amount.
And so I started thinking about what I wanted to do next. I really wanted to build more things, be more hands-on, and just work at a place that was a little bit faster paced. And so I started thinking about, okay, I'd like to move into tech. But I ran into a lot of challenges because my title didn't make sense to a lot of people. And so it took a long time for me to not only translate my skills into other roles in tech, but also build out a portfolio that I could share that illustrated that I could do those things. A lot of the things that I was building at the Met.
What were the skills you were trying to move over? Like when you say into tech, obviously, I'm an engineer. Chloe's also in the technical realm. It sounds like your background wasn't necessarily doing the technical side of it. So what were the skills that you were using to try to get into tech and that other side of it?
Right. Yeah. So the skills that I really wanted to leverage were, as I was building out this architecture of information, I really had to think about, okay, how are people going to access it? What are the different processes that need to be in place? How can I communicate these processes to other people? And so I also wanted to build up my writing skills. So I ended up starting a blog and just doing some writing and interviewing on my own time. And I'd say that new messaging of here are the processes I can build combined with the blog helped me get my first job in tech, which was a chief of staff job at a company called Hopscotch. So they're still around. They make an app that teaches kids how to code.
Wow. I love how everybody kind of finds their path and their direction into tech so differently. Of course, Becca with her education background, you with this sort of artsy, sort of at least a hand in the arts background, it seems. So do you use parts of your background in the arts world today in your career as a career coach?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like so much of what I was doing back then, the specific technical pieces of it, photographing things, not so much, but definitely learned a lot about process building, about really communicating effectively. I think so much of building out a website or even writing a book had to deal with, okay, who's going to be using this information? How do they want to access it? And how do I break it down in ways that are accessible for people?
Ooh, Becca, this sounds so similar to your tale, your trail to tech.
One of my pitches was that I had a Middle East Studies degree, and I spent my time literally living three perspectives of the Israel-Palestine conflict and learning how to articulate different perspectives to different people in a way that was palatable. And that's a completely separate skill, except for that then I was able to pivot that into, I can translate between technical and non-technical folks. And so what I find so interesting about Meg, what you're saying, is that communication is just a really important skill, period. And It doesn't matter what the role is, if it's a chief of staff, if it's an engineer, if it's a manager, engineering manager, product manager, project manager, it doesn't matter. Communication and finding your audience and tailoring your information appropriately is so clutch.
Yeah.
So key, yeah. Because you can always learn a new discipline, but having that strong foundation of communication skills is really key.
So I'm very new to the coaching world. Personally, I see 2 ADHD coaches now because that's how much help I need with my ADHD. But what I really loved about reading your book, Meg, is it kind of gave me a sense of what it would be like to work with a career coach. It very much felt like a little Meg in my pocket being like, you can do the thing, you can find your way into what you want to do. So what does a coaching relationship look like for you? What do we get if we work with a career coach?
Yeah, I'd say for me personally, I feel like the 3 things that I offer folks are structure, accountability, and support. Nobody has ever really taught how to think about those big questions, like what do you want to be when you grow up? There's actually tons of other sub-questions in that large question. And it can feel really overwhelming to start engaging with that without a clear sense of, okay, how should I structure that thought process? And so part of the reason why I wrote the book, and also, my role as a coach, is to help you break that problem down into smaller questions, so you don't just get so overwhelmed that you give up. And so the second piece is accountability. So when I'm working with people, we're meeting every other week, and we're carving out time, and we're really dedicating that to digging into the question. Sometimes there are action items that people work on outside of the session. So it's really, okay, you said you wanted to update your resume this week. I gave you some feedback. I'll expect to see those changes next time in our next session. So really keeping it moving. And I'd say the third thing is support. A lot of stuff can come up when you're going through coaching. I always say that coaching is definitely not therapy, but going through coaching while you're going through therapy at the same time, I think, is a really nice compliment.
Amen.
There's so many feelings that come up when we're talking about work. Work these days feels really deeply personal.
Yeah.
And the different things that we've internalized about work can be really challenging to undo. So the last piece of my job is to really just help people feel comfortable and supported as they're going through this process, because it's really hard.
And what you're saying reminds me a lot of what Becca and I have talked a lot about on previous episodes about sometimes it takes another person to tell you that you're cool.
Yeah.
And that you have like these parts of your life and like, hey, you're really good at this. And you're like, I am. And we've seen such great examples of that with, Becca has talked many times about, it's your friend who's a neuroscience degree or something like that.
A mentee with a PhD in astrophysics.
Yes.
I have no applicable skills. And I'm like, sure.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. It's like sometimes it takes an outside eye, and I know I do so well with accountability partners, which is why I have just been thriving, and also an emotional. I'm seeing a therapist and doing 2 coaches, so I'm like, oh wow, like my mental health is great, and I feel like I'm getting things done.
So Meg, I have a question for you as somebody so I've tried coaching once, and I want to tell this story because I think it'll be relatable to other people who've tried coaching and not had the best experience.
Ooh, interesting.
So the reason it wasn't the best experience for me is that I didn't know what I wanted. And so I had this coach who was looking at me saying, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to work for? And I was like, those big questions we were talking about earlier. And when I was reading through your book, one of the things that struck me was how it was breaking down all those questions in a way to give you the opportunity to dive into those questions and figure out what you want. And what I ultimately found was that I wasn't, at the time, this was maybe 6 months ago, I wasn't in a headspace where I was ready and willing to really do the work in order to make coaching worth it. And so I'm curious how you as a coach deal with people like me, right, who don't really know what they're looking for or how to get it, and yet could definitely benefit from some sort of coaching and having that third-party view and advice.
Yeah, so the way that my process works is there's an opportunity to do longer-term coaching. There's an opportunity to have prep for your job search. So I clearly know what I want. I just need help with, the branding and materials. But people can also just book me for an hour and talk things through. And they can decide what that particular question is. What I want is a big, meaty question, but being able to break it into smaller pieces, I think, can help you chip away at, some of the underpinnings of that. So I think, if you were to come to me and say, hey, I'm trying to figure out what I want, I would have different sub-questions. I think I'd be curious about, what you've done in the past, what you liked and didn't like about those roles, what you liked and didn't like about those environments, because that's another big piece of it as well. Those would definitely be things that I'd be curious about if you came to me with the big question of what do I want.
See, Meg, I wish I had met you when I was an office manager, and I could be like, I think I like LaCroix. I just hate putting it away all the time. And you could be like, well, what if you could drink the LaCroix?
All the time, yeah. You had a LaCroix fountain in your house.
Yeah, I think a big epiphany for me in the last probably year or so is I've had some pivotal moments without coaches, just really close friends of mine saying things like, "You're really good at, this thing," and I'll be like, "Oh, interesting. That's something that I take a lot of pride in, and that my mom taught me how to do. Like, I should try to use this part of my career or my part of my brain more." But that's what I love so much about having outside people show you, like, hey, actually, you do have a big leopard print bow on your head. Like, kind of the obvious that's in front of everyone else's faces, but not yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, that different perspective can be really key.
And then I also wanted to ask you, so you work with a lot of different people in tech who are making these career transitions. What have been some of your sort of favorite, like, glow-ups or realizations that you've seen people transform, like their Cinderella moment, so to speak, into their careers, their dream careers?
This is such a tough one because I'm like, you're asking to pick between
all your children.
I know.
You can also make up a child.
You can make one up.
So I still do consult in the bootcamp space. I still work with students who are making the transition just because I love working with that population. I think it's so cool to see folks coming from so many different backgrounds, professional musicians, people who didn't go to college and don't have 4-year degrees, people who are professional chefs, really just going through the program and really hearing their stories is always so delightful.
Yeah.
But I also work with lots of folks who are in tech and trying to make transitions. I think, so one person that really stands out was a person who came to me who had an incredible resume. She, not getting into the details, but she had done a lot of different things at a pretty high level. But ultimately, we determined that she had a really toxic relationship with her boss, who was essentially putting her down and creating a situation where she felt like her skills weren't valuable. And so she was trapped in this negative relationship with her boss. And over time, we were able to talk about it together and help her realize that, because I don't think it was something that was at the forefront of her mind. She was just internalizing it as, I'm terrible at all these things. But once she was able to step outside of that and reflect on that dynamic, not only was she able to get another job, but the job that she got was such a better fit for everything that she wanted to do. And that to me feels like a really powerful moment for coaching.
Yeah.
Because I think that so many times it can be really difficult to identify your own stories and how you view things. I struggle with this too. That's why coaches need coaches and coaches need therapists.
Yeah.
It can be tough to ID your own stories without the help of another perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a lot of the power of having a third party that you don't work with or that isn't already a friend of yours and doesn't already know you. Like, I just remember when I was talking to this coach and trying to explain what was going on, and she didn't have the context of what I'd been dealing with, and I had to put words to my petty issues of the day. I realized how petty and insignificant they were. Like, there were times where she literally just smiled and nodded. I was like, well, this whole thing was happening, which, okay, let me back up. This is a big deal because of this. And, okay, now that I mention it, it's actually not a big deal at all, and I'm over exaggerating. So cool.
There's so much about talking out loud that helps you sort through. At Hackbright, at my boot camp, I always say this, that just talking about, like, this is hard was a thing that we just needed to say to each other, or else we probably all would have gone crazy. Just having that sounding board and those people to relate to. I should also mention real quick, because I forgot to mention it this time, hello to our 17 people watching us live. If you have any questions for Meg or myself or Becca, or we say any words or things that are confusing to you, drop them in the chat. And we got a hey from Cher. Hey, Cher. So
Cher,
drop them in there. We will, yes,
Amazing.
Cher. She's taking a break from Mamma Mia 3, joining us. No, different Cher.
You about that?
I don't know. It just looks like someone I know from Twitter, but it could be Cher. It's Schrodinger's cat. It's Cher's cat.
So good.
Well, as far as, you mentioned that kind of a big part of a lot of this is helping people recognize what they're already good at. So you kind of got to do that with yourself, it sounds like, to be like, I really like to help people with this, career focused kind of stuff, and you went that direction. Do you have any tips for people who are maybe looking to join the industry? They are like, okay, I want to go into tech. Like, where's kind of a good direction for those kind of people who want to explore the tech world, but they don't maybe know what tech is? Because I'm sure you see this a lot with boot camp students.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times going to a boot camp is a great opportunity. It's also a really big investment. And so especially if you're thinking about, moving into a tech role and getting that education, I always encourage folks, like, talk to people in the industry and start experimenting with stuff on your own. So even if you're too nervous to reach out to folks at different companies, you can join organizations like Tech Ladies, When You Can Code, and just lurk on their chats, see what people are talking about. If there's a concept that you don't know, you can do some research. And then as you get more comfortable just being a part of that community, you can start reaching out and asking questions. A piece of advice that I give people, regardless of what they're doing, is when they're going to a new company or they're looking to make a transition, is talking to people who do that job to get a better sense of what the minutes of that job actually look like.
Yeah.
So lots of times we'll have this idea of, oh, that job is really cool, it looks like this. But we may be imagining a job that is a little bit different than what the actual role entails.
Yeah, I get that a lot with developer relations, specifically. A lot of people who maybe are coming in from the theater world who would have otherwise not thought of a career direction going this way are like, I thought that being an engineer was like sitting down at a computer all day. And I'm like, yes, but there are many flavors of this. Come and join. Come see what sales engineering is. Come see. There's just so many. I think that, traditionally we see a lot of people who are self-taught or going to boot camps or going through online programs going for these junior engineering roles, which I'm highly encouraging of, but there's so much out there. There's so much cool, interesting paths and directions, and gosh, even some of the stuff that Becca gets to work on specifically at Reddit, I'm like, that's a job, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, but even like when I hear job titles, or like a mentee will ask me like, what does this type of engineer do? I'll just like shrug my shoulders and be like, I don't know. And it makes me think back to when I was first out of Hackbright applying for jobs and trying to get the sentence like, hi, I'm Becca, I'm an engineer, nice to meet you, out without laughing, which for the record, I'm 2 years in and still laughing when I say that sentence sometimes. But it was so interesting to sit down with engineers and just ask them, like, what do you do all day? And what are the things you like about the job? And what are the problems you get to solve? And I would listen to people speak passionately about things that sound terrible. Like, I heard from like the infra engineers that are like, all I want to do is figure out how to get these databases to talk efficiently with each other.
And you're just like, no.
Godspeed, thank you for all that you do. No.
Yeah. No, that's such a great gift, because you're like learning exactly what you don't want by just talking to that human. Like, you don't even have to go all the way down the rabbit hole and get that job to be like, oh, this is awful. This is terrible. Yeah. I did not want that.
And it was really, it was exciting in my cohort. I don't know about yours, Becca, but once like the women in my cohort at Hackbright started getting jobs, to see what kind of roles people got into, because I was like, oh, very interesting that I went to developer evangelism, but then some people would be like, oh, I took this job in STEM education. I'm like, absolutely, yes, like that is like, you have such a gift for that. Or people who, maybe ended up working on productivity tools because they were, of a certain personality. So it's really interesting to see kind of after the fact, and especially now that some of us are on our second or third jobs, like where we've sort of found our place in tech, so to speak. And I saw it, you could see little tastes of it in our like demo apps or our final projects, where it's like, oh, interesting. Like, we talk a lot about how once I realized public speaking was something people did not like to do in this industry, I was like, oh, ding, 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 that thing there. And Becca with her musicals, of course.
But what's interesting, though, is that like, these aren't the kind of things that are necessarily on job description, right? Like, I'm a back-end engineer. I'm on a product-facing team. I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of leadership. I do a lot of work with various subgroups around Reddit to deal with things I care about, but that's not like what the engineering stuff is. And I think this goes back to the book, Meg's book, which is all about like, what are the things you love to do? How can you find a role for yourself at a place that allows you to maximize the things you love doing? And so, though, like, it's not my job to write joke musicals about Reddit. it is something I do at my job, much to the amusement of the people I work with.
Yeah.
And right, and it's like an added thing. And so I think that for more people to be able to think about where are the kinds of places that they could find those things that they can do extra in addition to the role is super important.
And I think I was on a panel recently with Girl Geek Dinner where I'd heard a quote recently that said the job that you have in like 3 to 5 years probably doesn't even exist yet. And certainly I did not know 5+ years ago that a developer, I would have been like, what's a developer evangelist? Is that like what Reno Sweeney does from Anything Goes? She's like an evangelist of some kind. So something I really loved about this book, again, I'm like, Meg Duffy, find your way forward. Something I really loved about this book, the question that I loved the most, which I kind of found out in a secret way, I had been doing this all along, is this question. So you can see we've got a little workbook format here, and this one says, if you were invited to speak at TED, like TED Talk, and you knew your talk would be viewed by 1 million people, what would you talk about? And I was like, interesting. I give talks quite a bit in my line of work, and I have a lot of kind of autonomy about the different topics that I talk about. So that was something I was kind of using to help like guide what path and direction I went in tech. But Becca, what would you give a TED Talk on? I want to know.
So the topic is actually the same one as it would have been 3 or 4 years ago, which has nothing to do with tech. Okay. But the topic I would choose is the importance of intergenerational friendships.
Interesting.
So when I worked in Mississippi, I was at a Jewish nonprofit, and I was traveling to all these different congregations all around the South and running special programs and doing home hospitality and staying with people. And it was so cool to be able to just pop in and have conversations with people of all different ages from all these different places. Like I had this really fond memory of this woman in Fayetteville, Georgia. Her name was Honey Akers, and we were talking about what it's like being a woman in the business world. And she was like in her 70s and talked about like this guy, like she was working as a receptionist because she knew how to type. And she was like, I can do more than that. And they were like, that's great, you can type. And then this guy was like a repair person and asked her to like bring him into the phone room for something. And he like closed the door behind her and was like, I'll let you out when you kiss me. And she picked up a crowbar and said, you'll let me out now. And he did.
And her name is what? Honey what?
Honey Akers. And I actually wrote this up as and I titled the piece Lessons from the Southern Belle with a Crowbar. But
I love her.
We talked about how far women in the workplace have come and how much further there is to go. Yeah. But it's these kind of things like outside of the religious world, there aren't really a lot of places where intergenerational friendships really happen. And so I would give my TED Talk on the importance of those as far as building community and passing institutional knowledge and really allowing us all to empower ourselves and each other by knowing what came before.
Becca, this is so interesting. And now I think you need to run old people Reddit for my dad so my dad can get on Reddit.
I did not say I would do IT. That is a different job.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting though, because you can even think about like, oh, what are some like products or things that I want to work on in the future that maybe involve connecting those two people. That's so interesting. I love that. Yeah, that question really made me think. I was like, oh, I love this way of thinking like far ahead on like, what's the thing that I want to like have my turtleneck on and like my pointer and you know.
Well, what is the thing you want to give your TED Talk on, Chloe? Get ready.
So I think, you know, I got to give a keynote before all of this crazy stuff happened a couple times that I really loved. I think I was supposed to be giving it this week in Toronto, ironically enough, that really had to do with the, my boyfriend helped me name it. It was called The ROI of LOLs, a great title for a talk that I cannot take credit for. But I have found that, well, I'm learning from my therapist, of course, that I combat a lot of difficult situations with my sense of humor, which is, I did musical comedy for a long time, so that checks out. But I'm finding that a lot of the content and things that I do in this industry that seem to get a lot of buzz and attention, like things like fake boyfriend apps or even this hula hoop ridiculous thing that I shared earlier, that there's a lot of humor in that. And I tend to gravitate towards people in this industry who also like to joke around and have fun within reason, of course. And I think mine would be about the importance of like humor and tech and how to make it kind of interesting to different audiences, but to also have a good time while doing these very, very difficult things, because I certainly know if I wasn't able to laugh through a lot of this stuff that I've had to go through in the last couple of years, I don't think I would have made it through on the other side. But a very vivid moment comes to mind, which, apologies to everybody if I've told this story before, but it was just so pivotal to me, is when we were whiteboarding in a practice whiteboarding session with our teachers at Hackbright. I was using kind of a silly, like it was either an acronym or like a word. Let's just say it was, for these many barnyard animals, solve for how many chickens have been let out of the coop. And I was starting to whiteboard, and I think I was using some funny variable names like, okay, so for piggy X and piggy Y, and I got feedback from an instructor, which was very kind and gentle, that said, good job, you solved it correctly, but you may want to do more professional variable names. And my honest reaction was, I don't want to work at a company that doesn't appreciate my funny variable names because that says to me that these are people who don't like to have fun at work. And I've really kind of stuck to my guns with that, and I've tried to work at companies that really have a sense of humor and enjoy what they do, because if we're all just kind of beeping and going, we can't help but laugh. I mean, that's why Silicon Valley, the TV show, is so funny, because it is such an accurate portrayal.
So funny variable names are everything. I did an experiment recently where the question was, how can we distribute? I was like, should I not tell this on the air? I'll tell it on the air. It's fine. The question is about how do we distribute subreddits on home feeds? And I ran an experiment that is called Tax the Rich, where the idea was to redistribute the wealth of the amount of time you spend on the subreddits you spend the most time on to the subreddits you spend the least time on. So there was a wealth swap and tax the rich, boost the poor, and these were the actual words used. And so the experiment went live, and I got the message from the product manager that it screenshotted the name of it and just said, okay.
I think some of my favorite moments in tech have been those punny moments. We recently had a shirt, I think it was for Microsoft Ignite the Tour or Build maybe, it was Ignite in Orlando. The most coveted shirt that I've seen at Microsoft is this shirt with a dog on it. It's a Labrador Retriever, and it says hands-on labs, as in hands-on labs that you do at the event. And I have never wanted a shirt so badly. I have never seen a tweet for a Microsoft shirt other than a clippy one go wild like that. And I think it just goes to show that having I take a lot of pride on my team that whenever a pun is needed for a naming of something, that I am the resource usually that folks go to. I'm raised by a dad, I've got all the dad jokes, and it's been so wonderful to anytime that I tweet something and the first 4 responses are Chloe, period, I know that I've done my work for the day, that I've made someone laugh or at least roll their eyes at my dad joke.
So good. Punning your way to the top could be your TED Talk.
Yeah. The Thunderdome will be returning hopefully after Quarantina has left us.
Meg, what was your TED Talk? Wait, I want to hear
Yeah, Meg, what's yours?
It's funny. I actually have gone through the workbook. I'm trying to remember what I said it was. I think something that I've been learning a lot about lately, and it's very useful lately, is the idea of processing emotions through physical activity, the way that emotions live in your body. And so being able to find a way to get back into your body in order to be able to process and move through that.
Do you mean more through physical exercise or crafting, or is that a combination of all those kind of things?
That's a good question. I think when I was envisioning it, it was more through physical exercise, but now that you mention it, I'd say it would be activities that encourage you to be in your body, as opposed to disassociating and kind of all right, my brain is over here, but I'm in this meat suit here.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have to be modern dance, because I'm not a dancer, but
right. You call it dance. Is that the same thing?
Sure. Roboting. It's
more skill than I have. I do straight up Spring Awakening choreo.
Oh, great. Jumping. I call that School of Rock choreography, where you jump a lot when you're a child.
So good.
These are some niche musical theater jokes for the 2 people who will tune in and understand them. So Meg, how are you staying sane during this very kind of crazy mental health kind of time and period? Because it sounds like you two have a big focus on mental health, especially when it comes to this career kind of stuff. What are you doing to kind of, what are some bright spots during your shelter in place in New York?
Oh, yeah. Cool girl, I am throwing the book at it, that's for sure.
Yes! I'm just going to hold it up while you talk. I'm like, bye!
Yeah. Throwing a literal book at it. I actually keep a list of tools that are helpful for me. So like I definitely get anxious on a normal day. This is a different level of experience. And so, as I mentioned before, doing things like moving my body once a day is important. So it doesn't really matter what form it takes. If I'm doing yoga, if I'm going for a walk, if I'm just like, playing with my dog, that is useful. I know that I need to get a social in, and so calling a friend, definitely FaceTiming a friend really helps. Journaling has been useful. And also like just remembering that I don't have to get all of the things on my to-do list done right now, and that's okay. It was a little bit hilarious, like putting a book out in a pandemic, but I promise, like I wrote it well before. This is not like my project by any means. I've
actually bought a couple books to send to people who are using the pandemic to rethink their career. I'm like, great timing.
But yeah, it's taken reframing to remember that as a person who normally does work remotely and work from home, this is just a very different set of conditions. This is not the norm that I was working in before. And so I'm doing the best that I can to let go of the expectation that I will continue to produce in the same rate that I was doing before.
Do the two of you also feel that you are sort of not overachievers, but you kind of have to check and cross all those things off at the end of the day? Because I know personally, I've talked to a couple other folks who are friends of mine, and I feel like we're all getting this messaging from our managers and our friends and our family and our loved ones, like, take it easy, this is a difficult time. But there can also be that kind of voice in the back of your head that's like, but not for you, like you have to use this time to catch up. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely, some days I'm like, I need this, and I'm like, oh God, I gotta cross all these things off. But it's a weird time to be working.
My biggest thing that like in general causes me anxiety is blocking somebody else. Like I am fine to disappoint myself and to not do something where the only person to suffer is me. But if I have other people waiting on me to finish some task before they can do their piece of the puzzle, then it causes me tremendous stress. And so I'm really struggling because I'll be given all these tasks that are like, hey, here's what's happening. You need to do step 1 so that they can go do steps 2 through 50.
Yeah.
And it's like this morning, literally I sat and I looked at my computer and I was just like, I can't today. Like today, like no. But I had stuff that I had said, I will have it out by midday today, and it needed to go out. So I put on my big girl pants and did it and felt terrible.
Did you really put pants on though? Because you don't have to.
Well, I've been wearing the same sweatpants. I'll show it to prove it. I'm like, women have
there you go.
Oh, amazing!
But I've been like getting out of the shower and putting these same pants back on. But I did do laundry last week, so this is hygienic.
It's so interesting, Becca, not about your sweatpants, but I got really, really into habit formation and read a lot of books on that for a while. And there's a wonderful podcast that Gretchen Rubin does with her sister, and they talk all about habits and different tendencies. And she kind of named and identified, I think it's the 6 or 7 tendencies, and one of them is an obliger. And I feel like from what you described, you very much operate where you, if you're held accountable, almost like Meg was saying, with having like a coach or something, you're more likely to get it done versus a task for yourself. So this is us saying, treat yourself, take care of yourself, Becca.
Right, and for the record, my manager said the same thing. Like in our stand-up, I was like, I'm not in the best headspace today, and she pinged me and was like, you consider taking a couple days off next week? I think you should.
Well, I can't promise that I will watch Cats again, but if you need a buddy to take a day off, hit me up and I'll watch a different musical with you other than Cats. You're invited, Meg. Maybe we'll stream it.
I'm ready.
That's real. Actually, Meg, I had one other question for you when you mentioned not planning on putting a book out during the pandemic.
Yes.
So something that I've been thinking about as we've been doing this show is what advice you give to people in a job market that looks so different than anything we've seen. And so I guess my question for you is somebody that's doing a lot of career coaching and both helping with resumes and helping people brand themselves, and I assume familiar with the other side of the table, what advice do you have for folks who are trying to switch in to tech now, particularly trying to get their first jobs?
And there was a really cool tweet today from Alice Goldfuss that I will share in the show notes. She did a whole thread today about CS grads and bootcamp grads, how to get a good job with mentorship in this in this industry, I should say, that was interesting, that I'll link below in the notes. But yeah, I would love to get your thoughts, Meg.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every person that I work with has asked me this question.
Yeah.
And the thing that I try to remind folks of is the things that you can control about your job search are the things that you could always control about your job search. Like the number of applications you're sending out, whether or not you're networking. There's still organizations that are doing meetups online, so you can have a community. You can still work on projects, and you can still control your own schedule. You don't have to be sending out 100 applications at once and just doing the spray and pray.
Spray and
so
pray.
I think
I'm gonna steal it. I love that.
Yeah, it's not a good strategy. Don't do it. But I think as much as you can, remembering that when you do those things, you're creating opportunities for yourself, and being able to trust as much as you can that you're making progress. You can't control who's hiring, but there are places that are hiring. And so being very strategic and maybe a little bit more open to things that you weren't considering before, I think is a good move.
Absolutely. Also,
I have to share word out about things you can and can't control.
Yes.
Well, that's how I've been subbed. I said, I like the way that you're dividing things into the things you can control and the things you can't control. Because right now everything feels so big and overwhelming, but saying, no, these are the things I still can control is really empowering instead of being so terrifying.
Yeah.
My computer desktop photo is literally a list of the things that I can control, regardless of pandemic.
I love that.
Because I just need a reminder sometimes when you're like, okay, like in my head about all of these things, and it's like, oh, okay. Let me see the list. It's like, oh, I can control if I move my body. I control what I'm putting in my body. I control who I'm speaking to. There's lots of different things that over the course of the day you have choices in.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I need that visual reminder.
I love that. I'm going to steal that. I'm finding that I'm a very visual person, which is why I have Funko Pops of every person that inspires me on my desk. I promise I don't just love toys. I love toys too. But I think that having those constant, when I was going to Hackbright, I think I had an Elle Woods picture or quote or something on my phone, because of course.
So good.
But something that I think Becca and I touched on last episode, which I'm sure you've seen before, Meg, is that visual of the iceberg of success, where it's above the water, what everybody else sees. And seeing that every day in the bathroom at Hackbright was such a reminder for myself, but also for the other people in my life who maybe weren't so understanding of what I was personally going through or the career change that I was making. So those visual cues. Do you have any visual stuff that you use, Becca? You feel like you probably are maybe a visual person, musical person for sure.
I'm way too ADD and disorganized to actually have visual cues of anything. My room is a mess. I never make my bed. Everything I wear is on top of my dresser. If I put things in my drawers, I use them. So as far as visual pick-me-ups, not really.
I want to see how you play Animal Crossing. I just want to get you Animal Crossing to see what your house will look like.
You get a Switch. You're sold out of Switches.
I know.
It's sad.
You can watch me play. Maybe I'll do a stream.
That does not sound like the same activity that we were talking about 3 seconds ago. I just want to throw that out there, but I hear you.
Do you have Animal Crossing, Meg?
I don't. We were just talking about it the other day. I have never been super into video games, but actually one thing that I just downloaded yesterday was Untitled Goose Game.
Ooh, yes,
I was having kind of a rough day.
There's
There's something really satisfying about just being a asshole goose and
Yeah.
honking and stealing the farmer's keys.
Meanwhile, I'm just like living my real life on Animal Crossing and my virtual life in real life.
You gotta do it somewhere.
My island is Baller Island. Come and visit. I'll put my friend code in the show notes. Come to my island. I'm actually visiting a lot of friends from Twitter's islands, and it's been fascinating to be like, oh, interesting. This person gardens more. This person works on their house more. My house, of course, is all pink. Becca, I feel like you would collect like all of the musical instruments and have like a jamming room or something.
But I would never
Becca Island.
They would all just be there. Like that.
Yeah, you'd be like, I didn't build anything.
I have a mandolin coming hopefully this week, maybe next week, and I'm so.
Do you know how to play?
No, but I'll learn.
Great, love it.
I was like, I need a goal, and I need something that's not enough like a guitar, so I can actually like need to apply myself to do something different. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I think it'll be fun.
I love that.
That's what we'll do now.
You and your family band. You're like the Emmett Otter Christmas band, but it's the Rosenthal Bremel players.
Something like that. It's fun. It's weird. But like when you talk about visual cues, though, I do think that I have like there's a specific space. Like I set reminders for myself.
Okay.
And so that's my version of visual cues.
Like alarms or calendar alerts. How do you do that?
Like send Chloe an email about this, but half the time they're like set up through Siri, so they're really funny. Like I had one that was to ask Greg about something, and then I got an alert the next day that was ask Greg about breastfeeding, and I was like, that was not what I said at all. But
do you use like an app for that, or what do you use for that? Like iPhone reminders, or?
It's a combination of iPhone reminders, Slack reminders, emails to myself, and calendar invites.
Oh, interesting.
Organization stresses me out more than disorder. Huh. And like the idea of simply putting away things, like putting dishes from the dishwasher away, stresses me out to my core.
We should be roommates after this.
I'm a terrible roommate. I'm a great roommate, just for the record.
I love that for you. I feel like I've gotten I want to see what your desk looks like. I want to visit you at Reddit when this is all over.
Disaster.
Mine's all toys. Yours is all Post-its.
Mine's all pieces of paper and Post-its from 2 weeks ago that I'm.
Are you that meme of from Always Sunny of Charlie where he's like, who is Pepe Sylvia with all the strings and papers, like figuring out a mystery?
No, because I can't find the Tic Tac. The Tic Tacs. The things to put in the wall.
I love that. You're like they're not in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, well, and part of my thing with coaching, like when I was reading through the book, my big thing was, oh boy, I need to get ready to get real. And then I was like, look, something shiny, and like ran away for 20 minutes because I was like, this requires intentional thought at a place that I am not in a mental headspace to be giving right now. But I can imagine a different world in which I had the ability to do it, and it'd be very helpful.
So I'm so excited to have my own physical copy because my first copy I had digitally, and now I'm gonna get my beautiful gel pens and fill out all the different lovely parts of the book, and I'm so excited. Also, I have to share with you, Meg, for those of you who are fans of my dad, Frank Condon, he saw this picture of you on the back of the book, and he said that you look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but he doesn't know how to zoom in, so he was seeing your photo from really far away, and I was like, do you mean Grace Hopper? And he's like, no.
I will take Ruth Bader Ginsburg because, wow, I would love to be half as boss as her.
It was a very funny moment. I cannot wait for you all to check out this book. How can people find you on the interwebs and stuff, Meg? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Sure, yeah. So if you go to my website, megduffy.com, all one word, you can learn more about my work. You can email me through there. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at futureproofmeg.
And she's always tweeting cool career stuff that I love. I'm always retweeting Meg. I love it. And Find Your Way Forward, brand new, hot off the press as of like this week, right? Brand new?
Yeah, April 14th.
How exciting.
So, yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
And you heard it here first, folks. Becca does not read, and she read this book. So
it's a great honor.
So like Becca doesn't read.
She does not read.
I'm Harry Potter right now, so I am reading that.
Ooh, which one?
I'm about halfway through the second one. Now,
did you get to see Cursed Child?
I did.
Oh, good.
Love.
So good. Amazing. Well, we're at 4:58. Let me see if we have any questions here. I just have a little chat here with Cher. We have confirmed that it was not the actual Cher. I asked her, do you believe in life after love? They said, I can feel something inside me say, I really don't think I'm strong enough. No. I really hope that the Cher fans out there appreciate that pun.
I want to say I got you, babe, in a non-creepy way.
I got you, babe.
But that's what I'm thinking. Just
I saw a very cute, here, we can close out with our favorite wholesome content that we've seen on the internet this week that people can go check out to get a spirit boost. So I'll start with mine so you guys can think of yours. It's pop quiz. So I do a lot of Instagramming these days because I love Twitter, but sometimes it can be a little bit of an information overload for me, and I love the visualness of Twitter. Something that is not a new thing for me that has brightened up my feed significantly is you can follow hashtags, and following the hashtag women in tech has been such a lovely addition to my feed. I get to see all these fabulous people working from home with their desk setups. I myself just invested in some fun Sailor Moon desk things just to decorate my working at home space. But while I was scrolling Instagram in my Discover section, I saw this vintage video of Cher talking to Chaz Bono when she was very small, and it was very, very cute because Cher is asking Chaz to explain what Cher looks like and what her qualities are, and she says all these things like lots of makeup, false eyelashes, and it's one of those like candid clips of a child just describing their parent, and it's Cher that gave me quite a lot of life. How about you, Becca? What's your shiny bright spot to send people off with?
So mine is way less wholesome, but it's really funny, so I feel I need to share it. It's PG, don't worry.
Okay. You sent me the link. I'm looking at it.
So there's that picture of the like nurses standing like in front of the cars in Denver. They're like, protesting with people trying to reopen. And the caption says, and I'm quoting, "It's a wee bit ironic. He's in scrubs and she's hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride trying to holler."
It actually is a picture of that. I'll make sure to share this in the show notes.
Yeah, so that felt like it's something that we can close on.
Yeah. What about you, Meg? Any things we should check out?
I'm trying to think. I feel like
other than the book.
Yes, the book.
It's like not uplifting, but it definitely was something that I like. It just made me go aw and want to snuggle. So I have been coping by following dogs on the internet since I can't pet them outside of my own home. And I really loved the post today of that bulldog, Big Papa, who's sitting on his balcony. Oh, you need to look him up. He's adorable, and he's pouting on his balcony because he's not getting enough pets outside of the home.
Oh my God.
So it definitely made me go, oh. But it also gave me something to look forward to. I look forward to scrolling through more dogs and eventually petting all the dogs.
I will be adding this account to my Instagram. In addition to Women in Tech, I also started following hashtag Shih Tzus, and that has also been so many photos of Shih Tzus with bows and weird things in their hair and cuddling with alien ET dolls. So my life is going okay. Alrighty, well, I think that is going to conclude our episode of BCC All today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Meg. I'm so excited for people. Your book is incredible. I have my seal of approval on here that you can check out. I really do endorse this book. I'm so excited for people to just find their spot in the sun, as they said on an episode of Rugrats one time about Tommy's mom. Alrighty, well, signing off. We don't have a sign off, but we're gonna pretend that we do. Becca, ready? In 3, 2, 1. This is BCC All. Bye.
Bye. You did it.